Cavs have been on a roll since trading for DeAndre Hunter. But we've talked a ton about what DeAndre Hunter does. Let's talk about the other Cavalier from Virginia. Ty Jerome, and to help me do that, I bring on one of the best in the biz, Tony Pesta, to talk about Ty and the Cavs' probabilities of keeping him. I think we were just talking about this before we went on air. Ty Jerome has that thing about him that you can immediately identify. Oh, that dude's gonna do something in the playoffs if you make a run. I don't think I'm gonna be like any Cavs fan that's been watching the regular season is not gonna be surprised if like a 20-point Ty Jerome quarter brings you up over in like a pivotal game 3 or something like that. Like we're gonna be talking about something that Ty Jerome did if the Cavs make a substantial playoff run. Do you get that same vibe from Ty watching him?
Yeah, definitely. I know there's some people who are a little worried, like, is it going to translate to the playoffs? Because he's never really been in that environment. When you watch him play, he's a dog. I mean, he is so aggressive out there on defense and offense. I don't have any worries about him not being able to hold up on the big stage. He's just an automatic shot maker, legitimately one of the best shot makers in the NBA, which sounds crazy. But if you watch the Cavs play, if you've been watching this dude, you've seen the floaters, the 3-point shooting, efficiency across the board. He's one of the best in the NBA. And even just like every time the Cavs need him, the last 2 games being a great example with Darius Garland out against Memphis and Orlando, he put up 46 total points in 44 minutes. This dude's on the court and he's getting a bucket. So, and even if you go the last 3 games, I just tweeted this out, 65 points in 63 minutes. He's a one-man Cavalanche. He's shooting, I think, 61% from 3 since the All-Star weekend. He's literally automatic. He's one of the most efficient players in the NBA. And like I said, unless you're watching the Cavs play, you wouldn't realize it. But every time he's on the court, he's making something happen.
Yeah, and it's so like Karis LeVert used to be the other Cav that used to be capable of like randomly taking over a game, right? And Karis had his moments where he definitely did that. But I think there is a big difference between Karis and Ty because like even if Ty is not having that kind of game, I feel like Ty is still very effective on the floor. Where like there are days where like with Karras is like, hey brother, you got to get him off the court because
Yeah.
he's gonna drive you crazy with some of these threes he's jacking up while flipping his feet in the air. Like it's gonna make you mad, or he's gonna foul on 3-point shots a ton. I still haven't let that go from that game in Utah, but
Unbelievable. It was a 7-point possession. It was crazy. He fouled Jordan Clarkson
no, we
twice
were
on a
up by like
3-point
10
shot.
and we lost.
Yeah,
I know how that
it's
happened.
crazy.
But that's the thing I think that separates Ty from like a lot of other ones. And like, I guess this is a loaded 6-man of the year conversation because like we're thinking about Ty as 6-man. He ain't even 6-man for the Cavs right now,
Yeah.
right? Like he's technically the 7th guy off the bench with what DeAndre Hunter's doing. And it's not like you can argue that DeAndre shouldn't be in that role, right? Like DeAndre absolutely needs to be there. But yeah, Ty, I think he takes over a game more often than Karras did. And when he's not taking over a game, I still think he's very effective in a versatile amount of lineups, which I also think is important, right? Like it's not like you can only have him out there in these certain situations. He could share the floor with Donovan Mitchell. He could share the floor with Darius Garland, right? And I think that's the unique thing about him and why I'm not worried about the playoffs because, like, yeah, the environment, all of that. This guy did he win a national championship in college, right?
I think so. Yeah. With DeAndre Hunter, right? I believe they were together for that.
I understand that college and the NBA are different in a lot of different aspects, right? Like the competition that you're playing. But the pressure that you feel in a March Madness tournament, probably about the same, right? Because every game's an elimination game. You had, like, I would argue that it's like playing a bunch of game 7. So I don't worry about him in that kind of environment. Honestly, I'm excited about seeing him in that kind of environment because that seems like type of shit that Ty Jerome lives for, right? Like it feel like you get the bad Ty Jerome games where you just be randomly playing teams you're not on national TV. It's like, is this a surprise that he's doing this the second the Cavs go like a week straight on national TV?
Hey man, he picked the right time to do it. And like you're saying, he plays with so much confidence. Like when you just watch him play, I don't he kind of it's similar to Max Strus in the sense like when Max Strus got to the Cavs, that's just a guy who he has so much confidence in himself. I have no worries about him folding in the playoffs. Now,
Yeah.
could he have a bad game? Sure, but I don't think he's gonna crumble or have like a mentally weak moment or anything. And you mentioned with the
Right.
bench with DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome and kind of the Karis LeVert thing. Karis LeVert would take over games in a bad way sometimes. Like it would be like a bad takeover. It would be a disaster, and you'd have to get him off the floor. Even when Jerome is bad, he's not crumbling like that. So just having
He's
some
not making
stability.
Donovan Mitchell stand on the opposite wing and watch him dribble for 10 seconds.
Exactly. Yeah. He can play. He can play without the ball. He knows where to fill in. If he's got it going, he's not afraid to let it fly. But if
Yeah.
honestly, like I haven't looked at the box scores, but I feel like even when he doesn't have it going, he's not having these like 1 for 12 shooting nights that Karis LeVert would have. And that's not meant to be shade at Karis. He also had some great games for the Cavs. He was good in Cleveland. But I've been pushing this and saying this for the last 2 years. If you're going to be a championship competitor, you need to have a stable bench. At worst, your bench can't just nuke your lineups. Like they just have to stay in the game. Even if they're not increasing your lead, they just can't crater. And that's
Mhm.
what Karis LeVert and George Niang both were victims of at some times. And so now with the Cavs, with Jerome and DeAndre Hunter, you have like no bad lineups that the Cavs are rolling out there. There's no weak points. I'm not saying they're going to coast to a championship, but there's no glaring weakness on this roster anymore because DeAndre Hunter has the size and Ty Jerome. He's 6'5". It's easy to forget, but when he's out there with Mitchell or Garland, the Cavs actually get a little bit bigger because both Garland and
Mhm.
Mitchell are like 6'3", 6'1". So Ty Jerome, he's really helping in every department.
Yeah, and like I think his ability to get to the foul line too, right,
Yeah,
is a huge part in it.
he
Even if
gets a
it's not
great
shoot.
whistle. It's
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
he has that. He has that like some players have that like, oh my god, he's so athletic game, and then he got that crafty, right?
Yeah.
Like that. They just I don't know how I fell into him, right? Like I don't know why I keep running. Like you just watch these dudes run into him on that floater all the time, and he's so good at like absorbing the contact. And it's like Jokic like where he absorbs the contact and then he like flips the shot and it goes in. And it's like that is what keeps him very productive. And like he's been doing this so long that I have to assume this is just who he is when he's under the Wizard of Oz, which is Kenny Atkinson, who just finds things within you that like to unlock. Like we see this with DeAndre Hunter. I'm like, he's just pulling off the dribble now and he's just smacking threes. Like, okay, cool. Didn't know. I thought you were like a catch and shoot guy, right? Like, no. Apparently he could just boom boom smack a three. And I'm like, okay, that's very useful. Like that, I can use that. Cool. Yeah, it's been interesting with Ty, the emergence of him, how well he's played in the moments. And part of what I was getting at with the national TV stuff is like he plays better when more people are watching, I think. Like when he knows, oh yeah, this game's not gonna be on Bally Sports 5. Cool. I'm about to hoop. Like I'm getting extra minutes because Darius ain't in. Yeah, I'm about to like put up like I don't think he answers the moment whenever he's called upon. So I think the moment being bigger makes me more encouraged for him and not something that I'm worried about him kind of collapsing in on himself for. But we talk about Ty. We talk so glowingly about him. He is a free agent after next year, right? Or after this year. Do you think the Cavs can retain him? And when do you think the Cavs would be smart to start talking contract? Because honestly, I'll be real with you. I've seen enough. Give him whatever you can offer him, right? Like I'm confident that he's going to be able to do this in the playoffs. And I think if you wait till after the playoffs, I think the price might become out of range, right? Because I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah, I listen, as soon as you can get that man signed, I'm saying do it because we're already what like 60 games into the year. It's almost March. Like we have enough of a sample size. This team is already locked in at basically every position. You might as well get Ty Jerome locked in too. Will that happen? Ty Jerome probably, I'm going to assume it won't happen because it would be in his best interest to wait to the summer because you never know what he could get offered. But I want to shout out to Real Cavs fans, Luca of Real Cavs fans, and Bob from Fear the Fro because they did a great job breaking it down on Twitter, just what the Cavs can offer and what Ty Jerome could maybe expect in the offseason. So I'm a big dummy when it comes to salary cap stuff. So I appreciate Bob and Luca helping me out here and posting some stuff. So the non-taxpayer mid-level exception is 14 million per year. There's about 13 teams in the NBA that are going to be able to offer that deal to Jerome this summer. The Cavs, unfortunately, are not one of those teams. They can't offer him the full 14. The most that they can give him, from what I understand, would be 4 years, 49 million. That's about 11 to 12 million a year, just a little bit short of the full MLE. So it's not too bad. It's on par with guys like Mike Conley, Dante DiVincenzo, and Gabe
Mm-hmm.
Vincent. Ty Jerome is falling way higher than either of those guys. So if he thinks he's worth more money, there's only 3 teams right now that have enough cap space, or at least it looks like they'll have enough cap space to throw Jerome like a full bag, whatever that may be. And it's the Brooklyn Nets, the Utah Jazz, and the Detroit Pistons, but something tells me he's not going to play with JB again after some of the comments he made. I can't see that reunion happening. So really, I think the Cavs, like none of those teams are going to be able to give him
2 places there that are of the 3. That, well, 3, I think that like you have people inside the building that can argue pretty like thoroughly against that, where it's like, what, Donovan will be like, you don't want to go to Utah.
Yeah. Donovan can help him out there. And then they all know the JB experience.
Yeah. Well, Donovan has been like such a free soul after leaving you. Like you could tell he got better just because he left Utah. Like he's older, but he's better now. Like, yeah, he's just so happy to be out of Utah. Like it's a burden off of him. And shout out to Vernon Maxwell. And but when it comes to Brooklyn, that was a place that was heavily recruiting Donovan. Donovan didn't want to go there. I also think that Kenny Atkinson and Jarrett be like, I don't think you like, is that really what you want to do? Like, you know, like we winning here. They're not going to be winning there anytime soon. And then the JB experience, I mean, like he lived it, right? He was injured, but he lived through it, and he's living through the change. And I'm like, I don't know how you can be like, yeah, I need to go back to that, right? Like, there's no disrespect to JB. It's just like, it feels like once you graduate from JB, right, it's not something that you want to go back to. He's one of those coaches that I think give you a high floor, but not necessarily a high, like unlocks your ceiling. And he's a little bit more restrictive, right, on what he wants people to do.
It's like moving out of your parents' home. Like once you move out, everyone, you never want to go back. That's kind of leaving JB. And again, no disrespect to JB. He's doing great in Detroit, but Ty Jerome, I don't know if you saw this or if we've even talked about it, but he had like kind of a little, subtle shade thrown at JB after the Knicks game, I think, when they basically asked Ty, they're like, what's the difference between this year's Cavs and like previous versions? And he was like, it's the coaching. And then he tried to think of something else, and he was like, yeah, it's just the coaching. So clearly, I don't think he's signing up to play with JB. Now, who knows? But you could surprise me.
Try to give him minutes. That's what it was.
So even those 3 teams, though, I mean, Brooklyn, Utah, and Detroit, sure, those teams could throw him like 20 million a year. And if he takes that, I'm not going to be surprised. But none of those teams are going to give him the clearly defined role that he has in Cleveland. None of them are going to give him a chance to be the 6th man on a championship contending team, on a team that has his best friend in DeAndre Hunter. Maybe Kobe Altman plans on top of plans. He was like, we get DeAndre Hunter, we secure Ty Jerome even longer. And even outside of Hunter, it seems like he gets along with everyone on the roster. And for a player like Ty Jerome, who, I mean, he's on like a $2.5 million contract right now. He was barely an NBA player a year ago. To leave the place that you just found success and stability to go, again, if you get 20 million a year, I'm not going to be mad at you. But if you're taking like the MLE, the 14 million a year to go to like Houston or some other team that could offer him that, it just doesn't make that much sense. I know you're leaving 2 or 3 million off the table, and that's a lot of money, but still, I think the stability that Cleveland has been able to offer him, and the fact that he's had so much success here with a roster that the supporting cast around him just seems like he gets along with everyone. I don't think it's a guarantee that he's going to walk away from this. I know a lot of people are worried that he's gone no matter what. We'll have to see. And also, even like Brooklyn, Utah, whatever, they might not offer him 20 million. Like, right? Like those teams have cap space, but are they going to throw all of it at Ty Jerome? They might not even be a thing that we have to worry about.
Yeah, I don't see Detroit doing it, right? Because like JB didn't want to play him, right? Like I feel like that beef is mutual. By the way, every time they play the Pistons, I'm like, yeah, it was something. something,
Yeah.
something went wrong between them and him, because even like Jarrett be getting into it. I thought Jarrett liked JB. like it's something that happens there. But yeah, when people talk about, oh, this team isn't different than last year, I think now we're at the point to where it's obviously different than watching this team last year. Even if you're like, oh, well, the roster hasn't changed much. Sure, the roster has not changed much. But now you have two guys coming off the bench who are in the top 5 of 6-man a day. That was absolutely not happening last year, right? Like the Cavs bench was such a problem for them, right? They had to play they were like the Thibs Knicks right now, where they got to play their starters and they're so starting 5 reliant. This team is not starting. Like now we get to talk about the Cavs in different shifts, right? Like, because we barely get to see the starting 5 out there. Like we get like 5 minutes in the first quarter, maybe like 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, and like 2 minutes after, because like they're real quick after halftime to be like, all right, we're just gonna switch to one of these shift lineups and then take Darius off the floor and then put Evan out there, and then like they have so many different lineups they can go to now, which was an issue. And I think the underrated thing when people talk about playoff basketball, depth is not going to matter in the same way it matters in the regular season, because you're not going to play 11 guys in your rotation in the postseason. But where depth does help you is in your ability to have adjustments, right? Like me and you talked about when people were complaining about JB not making adjustments in the Knicks series. I'm like, what was he supposed to do? Play Robin Lopez? Like there was no adjustment like to be made there, right? Like what's he going to do to stop what's going on? He has nobody there that can do anything about it. So you can't make those adjustments in the 7-game series. Why I think the Knicks are in like major trouble, because I'm like, what adjustment they going to make if they run into anybody who gets to the hoop? Like
they got nobody. They like their bench is decimated. That was one of the big things I think we saw in the Cavs Knicks game recently. It's like their second unit came in and they were playing guys who I'd never even heard of. And Mobley and Allen were just abusing them. So, yeah, that's a great point.
And then, like, their offense is, like, really good, but it's not, like, the best offense in the NBA. And, like, what happens when Cat has an off night, which happens a lot in the playoffs, right? It's like, now you can't play defense. You got Jalen Brunson trying to score all the points from the point guard position, and you can't rim protect. And people are like, well, they get Mitchell Robinson back. I'm like, what if he gets 3 fouls in the first quarter? What you going to do? Because, like, that's what you're setting him up to do, is get a bunch of fouls, right? Because he's the only guy down there. He's going to have to drop constantly. Like, he's going to run into somebody. Like, he goes up against Evan Mobley in the playoffs. Evan's going to make him foul out. Like, that's the one thing Evan has added to his game. Is like, he can get you to foul out. That's why I'm, like, hoping what he does against Kristaps, like, hey, bro, just try to get him in foul trouble. Like, just go straight at him.
I need him to have a good game against Kristaps, man. For whatever reason, like, he's still got his number.
Yeah, like he long and he can move, right? And I'm like, all right, well, that's a problem for you. You're not big enough to move him yet. Cool, just get him in foul trouble. Make him hesitant. Make him think about it, right? Like get to the foul line, get 10 points off 2 shots, and try to call it a day there, and slow down his impact on you. But that's the thing with, like, when I look at a team, I'm like, how well would they be able to play in a 7-game series? How well can they adjust? Like the Cavs, people don't talk about this as much. They played Shannon Fry for a whole series and never touched him again.
Yeah.
Like,
they pulled him out when they needed him and then put him back on the shelf. Yeah.
Just smacked all them 3. Was it Toronto?
I know it happened against Atlanta one year, and I feel like there was a Toronto series too where they used him.
I remember we used him in the conference finals. NBA finals came. I forgot Shannon Fry was on the team. Right?
Yeah, he didn't see the floor.
Yeah, he talked about it. He's like, that's what adjustments are there for, right? Like, there's gonna be a series where, like, you remember Devontae Green's there, but there might be a series where you're like, oh man, we haven't played Devontae Green in weeks, right? Yeah. Like, it is how you make those adjustments that get you through a 7-game series. And why I look at the Cavs, I look at the Thunder, I look at the Celtics. I'm like, those 2-3 teams are just clearly in a different space than I think the rest of the NBA is. And I think Ty Jerome and now DeAndre Hunter are just such a massive part of that. People are bringing up the comp to the early Warriors team that won that first championship. And, like, this feels like when they had Iggy and they had Mo Spades and they had Sean Livingston. By the way, that crew, Sean Livingston, Mo Spades, almost beat the Heat in the middle of the Heat streak by 30 when they were on the Cavs. That's when I knew that was a real unit.
I was at that game. I remember that.
I
That was
remember
insane.
telling my baseball coach, Tristan Thompson's going to get 20 and 20 today. Like, this is going to be the day where the offense arrives for Tristan Thompson, right? Back when we hoped for such a thing. And then he texted me, and he was like, oh, my God, you were almost right. Because I think Tristan had like 17 and 20. I was like, dude, I felt it. I just caught the vibe. Like, Tristan's going to have a good game. But, yeah, it's like that matters a ton. Right, we can talk about Steph, we could talk about Clay, we could talk about what they had Harrison Barnes. Like, if you go look at that Warriors starting five, like, yeah, Steph and Clay are Hall of Famers, but it's not this overwhelming, dominant wing presence that you're used to from a championship team. It's just a team that had a lot of pieces and a bench to go to. And I think that's where the Cavs similarity is with the Warriors. It's like, hey, there's not a single player on here that's going to overwhelm you with the thought of their presence physically. Right, that's not what the Cavs. Well, Evan Mobley's a little bit there.
He's
right?
getting
He's like
there. Yeah,
7'4" Draymond that can finish around the rim and shoot. But like, I mean, at this point, we're starting to talk about him like Kevin Garnett, right? Like it's starting to get to that point with him. But outside of Evan, there's not a single guy, and he's not fully there yet. There's not a single guy that like gives you that physical presence of what you're used to, right? That Olympic team starter. They don't have that. But what they do have is this unit that can go on there. And like if the Cavs get a 5-point lead with their starters, it's not rare to see that shit expand to like 10, 15 once you got to put some of the guys on your bench out there, and then Ty Jerome just finds some barbecue chicken cooked, or you're leaving a bunch of open shots on the floor. DeAndre Hunter's making them. God help you if Max Strus is having one of them nights. He had one of them games versus the Magic where I'm like, I know they hate him. Like,
yeah, if he gets going, it's over. If the rest of the team clicking, and it's crazy. You just keep naming guys, and it's like this team. I mean, you mentioned Mobley a little bit, but it's like, yeah, you got Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland on top of that. Jared Allen's pretty consistent. Yeah, he's going to give you his double-double every night. If Max Strus gets going, you're basically done for, because, again, like Ty Jerome can come off the bench and give you 20 points in 20 minutes. In the playoffs, if you need an adjustment, I think Jerome has shown that, like, hey, anytime DG's out or Mitchell's out, or let's say it's like a game 2 in the playoffs and DG picks up 3 quick fouls, Ty Jerome's going to come off the bench and fill in that role to the best of his ability. If DeAndre Hunter's having a cold shooting game, Dean Wade can come in and help out. Or let me pivot to a different comparison. If DeAndre Hunter's not playing good defensively, because there are some concerns there still, even though I think he'll be fine. Like, let's say he's getting cooked for whatever reason. Well, we can pivot to Dean Wade, and he's one of the best wing defenders in the NBA. And it's nice that Dean Wade isn't the only option anymore, because he's a good option. But when he was the only option, if Dean Wade wasn't shooting the ball or he was just running cardio, you were screwed. Now you got DeAndre Hunter. Now you got Wade. Now Okoro's healthy. Javonte Green could help. Like, there's just so many adjustments that Kenny can make. And it just wasn't the case last year, or even just like 3 weeks ago. It wasn't the case before we got Hunter and Javonte Green.
I mean, you could tell this when the Cavs run the bench out there, right? When they're up there putting them Tristan Thompson minutes out there, which, by the way, that's my new metric for measuring a Cavs blowout.
I love
Tristan
this,
Thompson minutes. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, we beat you by 8 Tristan Thompson minutes. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me for the rest of the season. But, like, even those lineups were going on runs. I think the last 2 games, they expanded the lead, right?
Yeah,
where I'm like,
Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando, and I believe it happened against the Knicks too, right? Where the Cavs went on an 8-0 run against the New York Knicks when they had their bench out there, and well, not even their bench, their deep bench out there, their deep reserves. And I think that speaks to one, just like the culture on the team of like, hey, we're gonna keep pushing and get excited for these guys when they get a chance, but also like the depth of this team, because even those guys, like Craig Porter Jr. is not going to be somebody you want to be a factor in a playoff series, but he's a really good deep reserve, right? Like he's actually kind of useful when you have to play him out there certain minutes, and he can have a game or two where he goes off and you're like, man, should we play Craig Porter Jr. a little bit more often? Like they have these things there. I think the Cavs' most underrated thing about them has been their development. They have done a great job in developing these G League guys that'll come on. Sam Merrill is somebody who could come on and might give you a game in a playoff series, right? Because you got to go to Sam, and Sam just clips off 4 or 5 threes, and you're like, oh shit, here we go. Good. We got good Sam Merrill today. Like, cool, right? That used to be like our seventh guy. Like, what we were hoping to get out of Sam Merrill, that used to be Jetty Osmond. Like, hey, let's hope Jetty does something, right?
It's like our only chance. Like we
yeah.
need that to happen or we're cooked. Now it's the cherry on top, basically.
Oh my God, those Jetty Karras minutes, dog.
That's how you know it's bad. You're praying. You're praying that you get Jetty and Karras to hit at the same time. When you're lucky if you get one of them every
Oh
other
yeah.
week.
A lot of times you get them both like not cooking at the same time, but they're
Yeah.
throwing up so many shots, and you're like, we're about to blow a 15-point lead. Man.
Donovan's gonna have to play 43 minutes. That's you mentioned the minutes too. They played Orlando, beat them by 40. No Darius Garland. And I think Donovan Mitchell had 11 points. He only played like 25 minutes. That's barely a half of basketball. The Cavs are just so loaded with depth that, I mean, literally think about the playoffs last year. Donovan's on one leg doing everything for this team just to give them a chance to scrape by in game 7. And now this year, he doesn't even really have to try. Mobley's cooking, Jerome's cooking, DeAndre Hunter fried them. I think DeAndre Hunter hit like 3 threes in a row that game and it just got completely
nasty.
overlooked.
Yeah, he went on a 9-0 run.
About it. he gave you a personal 9-0 run just like that. Max Strus hit like 5 threes. Jerome had 20 points again. It's just there's so many guys, and yeah, you're not going to be able to play them all in the playoffs. But if you have to turn to someone, if disaster strikes and someone either gets hurt or is in foul trouble or is having a bad game, you got a bunch of guys who have proven that you can rely on them at least for one game in the playoffs, and that's just there's like you said, only Boston and OKC have that much depth right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, there was that concern at the beginning of the season. Oh, is this real? Are they going to be something? I am now at the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm not worried about the first round and probably not even the second round. Like I'm at that level of confidence where it's like with the LeBron cast, you were confident for a different reason because you had LeBron, right? This is a very different confidence here. But it's like, I think this, we all know this is going to the Eastern Conference Finals, and we all know who's going to also be there, right? Like it feels like some years you could feel the NBA kind of like coalescing to like a certain result, and it's like it feels like it's like Cavs, Boston, and then the Thunders are going to probably come out the West. It feels like that's going to be the case. Maybe the Nuggets like use their experience to get over. The Lakers could surprise you. But it feels like it's all coalescing to that. But I wanted to talk about Shaq's take on Donovan Mitchell because I find this one like fascinatingly like bad for somebody who has demonstrated that they do watch the Cavs like a little bit. Because like Shaq says stuff, I'm like, nah, he watches them, right? Like he's not unaware. But then he says shit where I'm like, did he watch them? Because this whole take that he's like, he said this on multiple shows. He's doubled down on this. And I just don't get what he's saying here, which is like, hey, if Donovan Mitchell's not gonna get 30, then they could be beat. I'm like, have you not that's the exact opposite of what we have seen from this Cavs team all year. Like, when you hear him say that, like is there something I'm missing there with Shaq where I'm like, does he not know that Darius Garland is on the team too? Like, and Evans been getting 30? Like, or is he saying he doesn't believe in those guys? Like, what is Shaq's point here when he makes that? Because like he says Boston could do that. I'm like, sure, we're not Boston. We don't have Jaylen Brown next to Donovan Mitchell. But like, why are we acting like we don't have 3 or 4 guys who wouldn't surprise you if they got 14 in a quarter?
Yeah, I think Shaq is just holding on to like last year or even the last 2 years of Cavs basketball where Mitchell had to score 30 against the best teams in the league for us to have a shot. But now, like, honestly, if it comes down to Donovan Mitchell needing to score 30 at any point, then the Cavs are just kind of dropping the ball and failing to do what they've done all season because he hasn't needed to do that really at any point this year. Darius Garland has stepped up alongside him just about every single time. And really, you know, what it comes down to even more is like, hey, they're not beating Boston if Evan Mobley isn't at worst the second best player on the floor, but he might need to be the best player on the floor for Cleveland against Boston. So one, I think it's silly to say that Donovan Mitchell needs to carry the team because that's just not what the Cavs have. Like the Cavs are on, they've won 48 games and Mitchell hasn't really had to carry them for any of those wins. So I think that's wrong. And then two, I think you're kind of missing the point there as well. I think Shaq's missing the point because Evan Mobley is going to be the one who has to go off if they're going to beat the Celtics. Donovan Mitchell could score 30 against the Celtics, but if Evan Mobley isn't making an impact, we're not getting over that hump. So he's got to be the one to, again, at worst, be the second best player on the floor, provide that defense that we know he's capable of, but he also has to be aggressive and score the ball. So yeah, I think that take it's definitely a bad take. The Cavs they shouldn't be relying on Mitchell as heavily as they were in the past, and that was always the vision for this team because Mitchell, for as great as he is, he's not LeBron James, Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Durant. He's not going to single handedly carry any team to a championship. It has to be more like a 2015 Warriors, a 2004 Pistons, or like the 2011 Mavericks. Those teams that
Those
just have a whole bunch
14
of depth. Yeah,
Spurs,
and
yeah.
are going to win together because you don't have one guy who can do it all on his own. We have four guys and a deep bench who can get it done. So that's more likely in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I think the one game you could maybe say that is against Memphis, right? Where
Yeah.
Donovan definitely had to carry the load, but like Darius was out, like,
Mm.
and Evan still
And
got
Jerome helped too.
25.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Mobley
like,
still had 25. Yeah.
yeah, Ty had 26. Like it's like, what are we doing here? Like if we not want, like everybody else didn't contribute, and again, this is what makes you feel confident that the Cavs had a horrific shooting night against the Memphis Grizzlies. Another narrative that like people wonder, hey, can the Cavs beat good teams when they have bad shooting nights? 2 seed in the West at the time when they played them, and they pretty much never lost control of that game,
Mm.
even though they were shooting about 29% from the floor.
And they still scored 129, which is crazy. That was off the top of my head, I think that was their third worst 3-point shooting game of the entire season. And they put up 129. That
Yeah,
was like
that
the former Cavs teams weren't putting up 129 on an off night. They were scoring like 90 in an off night. So again, just another huge difference.
off Donovan Mitchell, I think what the first half 0 of 18 from 3 from everybody
It was
ugly.
ugly. It was very
Yeah, I was
ugly.
like, I mean, like that was like that Rockets run where they went like 0 of 27 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
And it was like, well, didn't matter, dog. Like
Still put up 129, man. It was
yeah,
wild.
like if we would have had a healthy Darius Garland and made a couple more threes, we probably would have won by 30.
Yeah.
Like, and to me, I look at that game, I'm like, that's the most impressive Cavs victory of the year. Cause like, yeah, we beaten teams by 40. We put Tristan Thompson out there for like 12 minutes because it's a straight up ass whooping. Like, we know the Cavs could do that to teams, right? And I expect them to do that in the playoffs to teams. I mean, just like Orlando being dismantled as easily as that was like, that shit was like you ever play a video game and like in the first game, this boss is super hard, and then they like make a point to like have that guy be dismantled
Yeah.
super easily, and you're like, oh shit, dog, like what's about to happen now? That's what happened to Orlando, because like Orlando was like really difficult for the Cavs to get by, and it just the ease without Darius Garland that they just like, all right, well this is what they're doing. Okay, they're gonna, yeah, we just dismantled that. That's over with. Just like goes to show you, like, yeah, man, this is a completely different team. But back to the Memphis game, I think that was probably the most impressive victory for the Cavs because that's the one that proves, like, okay, they don't need to make a bunch of threes
Mm.
to beat teams, right? And they've had games like that where they haven't shot well from three. They've still been able to either like come close to beating Boston or winning outright. That's the stuff where I'm like, okay, this team is not bulletproof, but they're tested. They're weather tested, right? Like they're not just gonna, if one thing that they've been doing all year doesn't go well, right? They're not one of these like Hawks teams or like the 60-win Raptors, where it's like, hey, the second that thing that they rely on to win goes away, they're done, right?
Mm.
This is a little bit different. And I think that is why I feel so much more confident. And Ty Jerome is a massive, massive part to that. And I think retaining him is a big deal for the Cavs. Like it's got to be priority number one, right? Like
For sure. You got to keep that guy. And one more real quick point on that too, because you mentioned like they proven that they can win without shooting the 3-pointer. That's where JB ball builds character. The last few years they weren't shooting the ball well to their wins. They were grinding those ones out. And so it's like, yeah, this team, if they're having an off night from three, they're like, all right, we're used to this. We won 48, 51 games the last two seasons, not being a 3-point shooting team. So like Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, they know they've been there before. So they can win in a multitude of ways. And I think they've shown that. And yeah, Ty Jerome's a big, big part of that. So got to get the deal done one way or the other. Give him as much as you can offer and hope that he decides the power of friendship is better than however many extra million he could make on the open market.
Yeah, the threes aren't dropping when you see Jared Allen get that ball in triple threat position at the free throw line. You're like, all right, they're going downhill.
They're up. Yeah.
They're going downhill, and Jared's about to shoot a hook, and it might go in. But yeah, definitely the power friendship. I guess the last question I want to ask you is vibe rating. Is the friendship and camaraderie vibe here stronger than the flip cup dancing LeBron James teams?
Oh man, that is tough.
Danny Green out there.
I'll say yes, only because I don't think there's the lingering threat of LeBron trading you if things go wrong. Because I know those teams had a lot of chemistry, but I don't think Ty Jerome was worried that Mitchell's going to send him out the door if he has a bad game. That wasn't as much of a worry during that era, but
of LeBron just leaving.
Right? Yeah, that too. Yeah, Mitchell's signed for the next how many 4 or 5 years. So there's a relaxation that they have of just knowing all right, as long as nothing insane happens, we're all gonna be here together for the next few years at least. Whereas with LeBron, yeah, I was I don't know what he's gonna do at the end of the year. So both teams were great though. I want to be clear on that, but incredible vibes both seasons.
Mm-hmm. Did the power of friendship win or lose in that summer? Because you could argue the power of friendship lost because it seemed like he loved that team and he just bounced. But also you could argue that the power of friendship won because he played with his homeboys in Miami.
Yeah.
Maybe the power of friendship just wasn't strong enough in Cleveland to keep him here. So yeah, always bring up. Look, the Milwaukee Bucks have figured this one out. The Nassers will always have a job. And he's not a terrible player or anything, right? But he's not there to play, right?
He's there to keep Giannis happy.
He's Tristan Thompson. I know people get mad when they're like, oh, he's not even in the league because he can play well. Hey man, once you're out the rotation, it don't matter how well you can shoot.
Yeah. He's not there for being on the floor. He's there for
you
everything
think Tristan
else.
Out there because he could play? Tristan out there because he could play somewhat, but really he's a bench coach, he'd be out there telling you if you should challenge. I think that was something where it was they were looking at something, just no, don't challenge.
yeah, he stepped in. Yeah, man. Yeah, Tristan, he's there for that veteran leadership, and I seems like he's done a good job.
Yeah, look, every time the Cavs get into a skirmish, Tristan Thompson.
He's out there.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson ready to take the charge, right? Out there all right, if somebody got to go get suspended, it's going to be me, right? Which an elevated version of what his role was with the LeBron Cavs because when LeBron wanted to fight Draymond, then all of a sudden Tristan Thompson hard fouls him, and then now you see the altercation happen. That's Tristan's role, and he's it's hilarious that that's become his role because he came into the league super nice guy.
Yeah. People forget about that. Yeah, he did not have this reputation up until the LeBron years.
Super nice, polite Tristan Thompson. Wouldn't hurt a fly. Such a sweet boy. And then you just fast forward 10 years and it's good Lord, Tristan Thompson has done what?
It's a menace.
What is going on here? That always cracks me up when I think about Tristan because I remember when he got drafted. I'm nah, man, Tristan. And then everybody else is I bring up Tristan to my girlfriend, and she's Tristan Thompson, he plays basketball.
Yeah. He's a villain.
I'm oh shit, I forgot. But yeah, definitely interesting how this team is lined up. I think Kenny, as much as he is a really good X's and O's guy, he has this Zen master quality about him, right? This Phil Jackson-esque quality where he kind of understands what people need and how to put them in positions to succeed. And he does stuff where he's I'm going to be proactive against some of these narratives. So the post All-Star game narrative, right? I remember people were hitting me up. I'm pretty sure they were hitting you up worried, hey, are the Cavs going to do the same thing they did the last 2 All-Star breaks? And Kenny's been we're going to treat every game after the All-Star break like a playoff game. I've never seen a Cavs team go this hard after the All-Star break. They're nah, we might try to win 70.
They haven't lost a game.
Yeah,
they haven't lost a game.
However many games we can win. They're already at 48.
Yeah.
They could be at 49 by the end of the month?
Yeah. I think
If they beat Boston.
tomorrow's their last game. They got to beat Boston, but yeah, they could.
Mm.
Their over under was what 47 and a half or 48 games or something entering the year, so they've already hit that. It's
Yeah,
great. They've matched last year's
somebody's made
total.
money
Somebody's already cashed out.
or lost it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like this is what I think Kenny brings, and I'm like knowing that about him. I think we're going to see a very interesting game Friday against Boston because I'm pretty sure Boston's aware that, hey, they don't want the Cavs to believe they could beat them, right?
Mm.
They see the threat that Cleveland is. And like the thing that made it obvious to me was they weren't focused at all about playing the Detroit Pistons yesterday when they played them, right?
Yeah.
Like
they took their eye off the ball.
Yeah, they didn't care because they were like, we got to beat Cleveland. Like if Detroit beats us, I'm not worried about playing them in the playoffs, right? Like we'll sweep them. But like I think they're thinking, hey, Cleveland has DeAndre Hunter. They're looking at us eye to eye. This matters if they go into that series against us and they think they could beat us because we split in the regular season, right? Like we got to go in with some kind of advantage, thinking that make them think that we can't beat them. And I think Kenny understands, nah, we got to go into that series with some confidence. Right? Like we cannot be DeMar DeRozan versus LeBron here, right? Where it's like, oh man, he's worried, it's LeBron, all that. No, we need to go in there with the confidence of thinking that we can beat these guys in Boston, right? So I think Kenny understands that. I think it's gonna be like a playoff effort on Friday between both these teams. Because I think both these teams, they're not playing for just the one win on the stat there. They're playing for something much more important, which is like, hey man, I don't want you thinking you could just beat me, right? Like this is going to be a very interesting game. I'm super excited for it, just for the matchups and everything else. But yeah, it looks like everybody kind of understands what the assignment is for Friday. And that usually leads, like this last time I felt this way was the Oklahoma City game, the first one, where I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, we all know what's about to happen here. Everybody knows what we're playing for. Everybody knows they're playing to put both these teams on the map, and they successfully did that, right? Like after that game, all of a sudden the Cavs are playing a week of national TV games, right? Like it just happened suddenly like that, even though the record's been good all season. So yeah, that's been something I've been thinking about. I think this game's going to be amazing on Friday. Anything else you have to say before we head out, man?
No, I can't. I can't wait for that game either. I think the regular season. It's only the regular season, but that mental aspect of it does matter. If the Cavs, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if the Cavs treated Boston like they just treated Orlando or New York, that means something. Like that's more than just one win. Now that's not going to happen. It's more than likely going to be a close game. That because I think both teams are going to enter with the same mentality and the Cavs, if they pick up a big win, that's going to mean something heading into the playoffs, just as far as confidence and proof of concept goes. So really, really looking forward to that game. And thanks again for having me on. It's always a blast doing this. So thanks.
No problem, Tony. And let them know if they want to hear more from Tony, where they can find you, writing, digital, and also video.
Yeah, hit me up on YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, all that. Same app for everything. It's Tony_Pesta. I have the Junkyard Pod on my YouTube channel, and I'm writing for Fear the Sword. So thanks again for having me on.
All right, man. Shout out to that one guy on Twitter from New York. I know he was somewhere in his basement. Well, they don't have basements in New York.
Yeah.
He was somewhere on a stoop screaming up, looking at the sky, Tony Pesto! Tony Pasta! Like a cartoon villain. That'd be fun. Like I hope the Cavs, this is how I know it's different. I am not trying to avoid a single team this playoff run. I'm like, nah, give me Detroit. Give me fucking New York in the second. I hope you fall to the 4th seed. Give me New York.
I'm not worried.
Yeah, I want your fans to boo as we eliminate you in 4 or 5. I want that. Bring that here, right? Boston, I want them. Right, it wouldn't feel right if we got to the finals and didn't beat Boston, because then we got to still answer we could win the finals, but because we didn't beat Boston, the whole next year is going to be, can they beat Boston again? Right, and that entire framing of it. Now, I want every team that the Cavs could play, and I want their best shot. I want no excuses, because I think this Cavs team is damn good, and they're going to play some damn good basketball down the stretch. But thank you, Tony, for being on. Make sure you guys go check him out. Are you doing a live watch at the game on Friday?
Yeah, so on playback.tv/Fear the Sword, I will be watching the game live. So make sure you check that out if you wanna tune in. It'll be a lot of fun.
Make sure y'all go check him out. Look, I'm not doing no live watches until the playoffs, man. I do the
Okay.
whole Brown season. Like
Yeah.
I need a couple months of regenerating from all that. I don't know how they do it on Twitch every day. Like these dudes are streaming like 9 hours a day. That
I
shit is
get it now,
exhausting.
man. This is
Yeah,
my first year
man.
doing it. It's exhausting, but it's fun.
Yeah, look, it's fun when something's happening, but like when
Oh
the
yeah.
Cavs go up 20 and nothing's going on, it's like, all right, well, what we gonna talk about, Shaq?
We start talking about movies, anything.
Just look, just start naming guys, right?
Yeah.
Just start naming
Yeah,
guys.
that's the go-to.
Jamario Moon. Yeah, I remember him. Remember Anthony Parker? Did you know Candace Parker was his sister? Like,
I actually didn't know that.
you didn't know that? Oh,
No,
yeah,
I just found that
yeah.
out right now.
Yeah, fun fact. See,
There we go.
just,
I'm gonna share that next time the Cavs are up by 30.
yeah, if you ever want to live stream, if you're somebody young and you're thinking about doing live streaming, just spend a lot of time learning trivia, especially you'll do sports live streaming because like it gets to that point. The Browns are down by 30. I'm like, hey man, y'all remember Sean Thompson? But appreciate you being on. Always a great time, Tony. Everybody else, have a great day. Have even better night. Peace.